the Around the NFL podcast. Won't talk about an onside kick this week.
From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. It is the flagship show. Sunday recap, Week 15. Week 15. Dan Hanzus here. Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler. Heroes both. What's up?
I'm okay.
Yeah, we just learned, or Mark reported this.
I reported it.
I'm okay.
That
Actually.
Who was it? It was
Zach Martin told Mike McCarthy, you know, if you watched the Cowboys-Bills game, the right guard exited with an apparent injury, but told Mike McCarthy afterwards, I'm okay.
right. And then I was wondering how he said it, because
Right.
I thought, Mike, relax. I'm okay.
That's how it was verbalized.
Mike, relax. I'm okay. I mean, Mike, I'm okay. Like, which one was it? We don't know. Inflection, tone matters.
Maybe it was like, Mike, I'm okay.
That's aggressive. But I think
There
they
you go.
have more of a bond than
I
that.
think the first one you did is probably
Yeah, I think that's
closer to
good.
the truth.
Like, we could do this for an hour.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather do that than get to some of the football today. Like, I could just do this for 90
You've been
minutes.
doing it for 5 minutes, so
I'm
I'm
okay.
glad to have started the
It's
show.
really, I'm actually talking about myself. I'm okay. All right. We have a lot to get to because, yes, we're coming down to the wire here of the regular season. Only 3 games left for each team after Monday night. I want to say we got some clarity on this Sunday, but not really. I mean, we had a division that was clinched. We had a couple of playoff spots that are now officially taken. But otherwise, it remains, Mark, just a big old stew of confusion.
It is it's a thick soup. I mean, only 4 teams have been removed from the playoff picture.
Thank God Steve Karnecki's back on NBC Sunday nights
Right.
to give us clarity.
Essential.
All right, let's get to it. Let's start. Yes, it was, at least on paper, the game of the week. It didn't play out that way, but it did, I think, teach us something about both teams to Orchard Park.
Cook to the left of Allen in the shotgun. 2 receivers left, 1 to the right. Here's the snap. Give us to Cook. Goes behind Dawkins through a hole. Down to the 10, the 5, and he leaps into the end zone. James Cook with his 2nd touchdown of the game. 1 receiving, 1 rushing. It is a blowout here in Orchard Park as the Cook has found the kitchen for the 2nd time tonight.
Oh, Chris Brown.
Whoa.
Bongos early.
Bongos.
Look, producer
Hey.
choice.
Every producer.
His team. It's his team.
Every producer has the power of the bongos. And you use that power. Good job, Eric. Chris Brown with the call. Good call by Chris. James Cook had a career best 179 yards on the ground, a whopping 221 yards from scrimmage, and 2 touchdowns, as Mr. Brown told you. The Bills dismantle the Cowboys 31-10 in Western New York, say bye-bye to Dallas's 5-game winning streak, and open up a whole can of worms about Dallas being vulnerable because they haven't been so hot on the road. And with this loss, there's a very good chance they'll be on the road come the playoffs. Mark, you were in the pole position in the draft. You grabbed this game. The Bills, man, look out.
Yeah, I think I locked this team up too.
Oh, he's
Did.
coming out hot. I like
he's
it.
hot.
And I kind of felt like this was the moment for Buffalo to either wave farewell to this journey that's been real up or down, and certainly the last 10 days been rough for the coach and everyone else. And I'm looking at a game where Josh Allen completed 7 passes. And if I knew that ahead of time, I would have thought that sounds like a potential disaster, or it tells a different story of a Bills team that found a weakness in the Dallas defense right away and never let up, running the ball 49 times at 5.4 yards per carry for 266 yards on the ground. And it didn't require Josh Allen. James Cook, I think we've seen James Cook kind of rise up and getting to the point where he's been a difference maker and changed their attack. Dominant today, utterly dominant. And you could feel the Dallas defense on a bad weather environment in Buffalo with no way to stop it. I mean, it's their pass rush that you think could take over a game and maybe neutralize Josh Allen. It never existed because Buffalo just kept sending Cook and friends right up the gut of the defense, and it worked to the point where there was this one drive I mean, their touchdown drives were like 11 plays, 12 plays, and we all sat there together watching that third quarter. This game started 25 minutes or something after the other two late games, and it caught up with them because of a third quarter march where they just ran the ball over and over and over, a 15-play drive that I think ripped the heart out of the Cowboys, and you knew that was over. Dallas had no way back into this thing.
It's funny, if the season goes long enough, sometimes you have storylines that are around early, then they go away for a while, and then they're back in December. And two storylines I remember honking about in September, early October was, wow, the Bills actually have a good offensive line this year and a good running game, a little more physical than they've been in the past. James Cook obviously has been playing great now for a month, but that really shows up today. And another concern very early for this Cowboys team was how tough they were when they fall behind in games, especially their run defense. They gave up 222 to the Cardinals, remember, back in week 3, and then 170 to the 49ers, and then that was back now. I don't think it means it's some fatal flaw that if they find their way behind that they are never going to come back, but it's those weaknesses showing up, and more importantly for the Bills, their strengths showing up in a massive spot where they have a couple layups now in a row before a Week 18 game before the Dolphins.
Yeah, you got a floating Chargers team, train wreck team on the road. Then you get the Patriots, another one of the worst teams in football. So they are really set up here. And, you could also say, man, we've been trying to trust the Bills all year long. They've kept on telling us, don't trust us. And yet this does feel different. You know, it's a great way to quickly move on from a frankly insane 9/11 controversy. Let that story leak on like a Thursday night and then promptly beat the Chiefs and the Cowboys in back-to-back weeks.
Right.
So it goes from Sean McDermott, the world's caving in on the guy, to, wow, this team, listen, you can't call them the favorites because they still got work to do just to make the playoffs, but they are as dangerous as any team in the AFC as we go into the final leg of the season. On the Cowboys side, listen, I think we were all on the same page. Mark, you did a good job blocking it up. This felt like a tough spot for the Cowboys to go on the road against the Bills team that was desperate, that was playing better, feeling itself a little bit. Cowboys come down to earth after 2 huge wins against big rivals. So it felt like a spot where the Cowboys could get knocked off. The one thing, if I'm a Cowboys fan, that I didn't want to see was this, a game where you get bullied, a game where you look highly vulnerable and you look like a pretender. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm out on the Cowboys, but I really did like this idea. If you want to sell yourself on the Cowboys making the NFC title game, for instance, for the first time in a quarter century, it's like find a way to win that division and get a home game, and maybe you get some luck, you get the top seed. Listen, all that is most likely out the door now. That's a damaging loss, Greg, and you could do the I'm not sure look. But when you look at the Eagles' remaining schedule,
right,
we got to see what Jalen Hurts' situation is for Monday night. They are in danger now. The Cowboys are being locked into that 5 seed, and maybe I'm not feeling so hot about them in that spot.
Yeah, just tiebreaker-wise, Cowboys and Eagles both ended up clinching a playoff spot on Sunday. But yeah, the Eagles pretty much have all the tie breaks, which means the Eagles now even have a loss to either Seattle or I forget whether their other out-of-division game is, maybe Arizona, to play with. They couldn't lose in division to the Giants necessarily, but that's a decent amount of wiggle room now for the Eagles. They could lose Monday night and still control their fate in the division. Yeah,
one thing I disliked about the whole Cowboys approach to this game early on was like a real lack of discipline too, which has not been the way they've been. I think they had 3 killer personal fouls on Buffalo's first 3 touchdown marches. Each of those kind of rescued Buffalo out of a situation where they could have been in hot water. I think we don't talk about this guy a lot, but Jonathan Hankins, who's on IR, I think that's not a Jenga piece, but it's someone that when he's not in there, I think his absence was really felt today as a run stopper. I mean, if another team can do this to Dallas, then their defense doesn't look the same as it has during other parts of this season.
The Dolphins next week are the number 2 running team in the league. So all of a sudden, they're going to be tested here, and we'll see how it looks. Yeah, the Bills put, the fact that they kind of put the game away by halftime, and you could say, well, Dallas is so explosive, nobody thought the game was over. It felt pretty over.
It did.
The energy was lacking around the Cowboys in this game, and that we talked about Zach Martin. He comes out, and you see him kind of commiserating with Dak. It just felt like the team was just not in it, and it's a bad one. It's a tough one.
I'm more surprised. I didn't watch it as closely as you, Mark, but just that the Bills defense got after Dak so much that the offensive line, and I know they didn't have Martin, but which has been great for so long, ends up giving up so much pressure that the Dak in the passing game ends up with 106 net yards passing on something like 37 dropbacks. That's insane. That's Carolina Panthers on a bad day type of numbers.
They're also, I mean, I know this annoys you, Greg, because you brought it up too, but it's like they're totally out of this game. It's pouring down rain, and they still have Dak in there. Like when the thing is completely lost, throwing passes to CeeDee Lamb, who was limping around at one point. It's like, I get teams do things differently, but why are we risking like a Pyrrhic loss, not even a Pyrrhic victory?
I can take you inside the head of Zaddy.
Well, you've done it with the team already.
I'll take you deep inside again of the Cowboys. I just wanted to, put something good on tape at the end of the game. It's a turn the page game, but we wanted to end on a high note, and we did that. And we're gonna look forward to better days ahead. It's dumb. Just like the genius Kyle Shanahan, sticking the ball in Christian McCaffrey's breadbasket up 20 points late in that game as well. There's just for some reason these teams are reckless in these one-sided games. Anything else from this affair?
I don't know. Just like I think the Bills are. I had real trust issues with the Bills, and it's starting to melt away. They've had a really good 10 days.
That's good. That's good.
I know that matters to their fan base. That I'm back on board.
It's been. I mean, McDermott is doing a great job connecting this defense, considering all the injuries. They lost 2 more starters going into today. They are down so many players on that defense, and each week he's coming up with good plans. It's been a good couple of weeks for McDermott. Coming out.
Post.
That's what I'm saying, though. If he loses that game,
post 9/11,
that could have been maybe the end of his time in Buffalo, depending on how it goes. But instead, his side of the ball, which has been criticized rightly, that he was trying to get people off the scent when he made that offensive coordinator change. And we said that here. This was his dream game. His defense is happening, and they're running the ball like he wants. Like
this season,
everything's turning up. McDermott. Maybe they only get over the hump finally in a crazy year where they have to be buried and almost done, and the rest of the AFC's not there. I don't know. Just saying.
That this makes no sense. This season makes no sense. We talked about on Thursday how this was going to be an epic shootout. Oh, Josh Allen threw for 94 yards, and they blew out the Cowboys, and nobody got
No, connect those dots.
All right, let's move to, I think, the game of the day. Cleveland. It's a magic, Mark. There's some magic in Cleveland. Believeland, baby.
From the Browns 45, Fields back to pass, up in the pocket, he rolls left, time's run out, he's going to look, he's going to launch, it's going down into the end zone, knock it down, the ball is intercepted, it's intercepted by the Browns, as DeAnthony Bell got it, he got it, ball game over, Browns win, 20-17, it's all over.
Jim Donovan with the call. Great call. WKRK. What you didn't hear there was that ball gets knocked down directly into the hands of, who is it, Darnell Mooney?
Mooney.
Who has it in his hands for a game-winning Hail Mary completion from Justin Fields, but somehow it pops out and then turns into an interception. And yes, there's a little bit of that magic dust on the Cleveland Browns this season. Remember we were talking about it feels like a million years ago, Mark, where you thought maybe this Jets season has some magic to it? Or what do they call it? Right church, wrong pew. It's the Brownies that have some magic to them after a 20-17 win, a game in which they dug themselves out of a 17-7 hole in the third quarter, or fourth quarter, Greg.
What a magic carpet ride. And I want to get to everything that led to that Hail Mary, but I think we got to start with that Hail Mary because the Bears get in position after the Browns kind of lose their minds and let, who was it, Tyler Scott run up the sidelines for a free 30 yards. The biggest play the Bears had all day. The Bears offense was dominated all day by the Browns. This was a deserved victory, I think, a deserved comeback by the Browns. They were the better team. And yet there the Bears were over midfield, needing about 10 or 15 more yards to get in good field goal range. The Browns defense stands up again, gets a couple stops to force the Bears to kick or to go for the Hail Mary because they didn't think Santos could reach on this type of day. That long a kick, it would have been over, I think, 60 yards. Beautiful Hail Mary attempt across his body, and it's deflected into Mooney's hand. And we have a tweet of it, of a picture of it, who's just literally on the ground, and it falls into his breadbasket.
Squeeze it, kid.
In the picture, you could see at ESPN's Kimberly Martin going crazy on the sideline, and it wasn't like it got smashed down into him. It fell very softly. This would have been the craziest play of the season.
Also, Greg, that is a professional wide receiver.
Right. Well, that
it wasn't like my 7-year-old son that it was patted down. It's like, oh, he almost caught it. I don't know how he doesn't catch it. It was a miracle, and then for it to pop up right to the right team or the wrong team, depending on your perspective, a little magic, little dust.
I like each of these Browns nail biters, and they went through like at one point in the game like what's happened in the final couple of minutes to the Browns in this season. These were games that the Cleveland Browns have been losing for 2.5 decades. So it's something is a little bit different. I know that Flacco, he had 3 picks today, and you're going to get that with Joe Flacco, but there's something about him. I mean, just the veteran nature of who he is.
Also threw for 374.
Right, that's the thing. Like you're gonna I just think that you've got like heads up and like neck up. Like Flacco gives them something they've just been missing at quarterback, and like you can accept the faults. I mean, I'm looking at the defense was so solid today because the Bears touchdown started at the Cleveland 5 off of one of those interceptions, and their field goal drive started at the Cleveland 23. I mean, other than that, they really accomplished very little on offense.
Yeah, I think it was the Cleveland 1 it actually started on, and that was a 4-play.
Cleveland 1.
It even took 4 plays, including 3 penalties that knocked out 2 of those plays to score that time. So essentially, the Browns defense, the Browns offense gave up 14 points. The Bears defense scored 14 points. Otherwise, the Browns dominated. And it was such a great game, but I do want to take you back to the first play of the fourth quarter because I think that's where it started. It had craziness. I said Flacco throws for 374, a couple of interceptions. Njoku has a great game, but that play, first play of the fourth quarter, the Bears are at midfield. We're coming off a Flacco interception, which felt like, ooh, this might be curtains. He threw it at the goal line after they were driving, and the Bears are up 10 points at that time. It's 4th and 1 at midfield, and the Bears are driving, and it's Cameron Mitchell, a little-known cornerback you haven't even heard of, that makes a great play on a design run from Fields where it looks like he's gonna have the first down, and Mitchell just dives and gets his ankles, and he's stumbling, and he misses it by half of a yard. They get the stop because of a guy you never heard of. Then it's next drive, Alex Wright, another guy you've never heard of, making a big sack and is making plays all game. This defense was so good. After the Bears went up 17-7, in their next 6 drives, they had a total of 3 first downs. They only had 70 yards in those 6 drives, and 30 was on that weird toe-tapping play on that last drive. Like, they absolutely destroyed Justin Fields and this Bears offense the whole day, which is why, even though I know Flacco threw 3 interceptions, they were moving the ball, and it felt very deserved. I would have been sick for the Browns if they had lost a close game here because the defense, it was another vintage, we're the best defense in the league type of game.
And I'll point out the game-tying touchdown, Flacco to Cooper. That's one of the best throws of the year.
Yes.
And I also want to point out it's when you have actual good coaching and play calling. That's a great design play for Flacco with a beat-up offensive line, to have a design rollout, to buy him a little time, to give him a good look downfield, and then he just like turkey holes it, and Cooper does the rest. It was brilliant, and also brilliant, my guy Njoku with 2
He's
huge
been really good.
catches.
The Njoku-sance is happening.
10 catches, career high in this game. He had the toe tap touchdown. He had a big catch on 3rd down to keep the game-winning drive alive in the 4th quarter. 2 catches to put the game away and to set up the short field goal. He is a certified weapon with Flacco, and I don't know how much longer the Browns can sustain injuries because they continue to come in waves, but they're finding ways every week, and they're a fun team to follow.
And I think that Kevin Stefanski came into this season with a potentially hot seat. I mean, I think there were questions about what the whole organization was doing in general, and through all the injuries, especially at quarterback, I think Stefanski has proven himself to Browns fans to be a bit of a difference maker.
It might be Deshaun Watson on the hot seat next year.
Well, I think Stefanski's proven 2 years in a row he can win with almost anyone at quarterback, it seems like. I think that says a lot about the offensive scheming.
Flacco has the 5th most amount of yards in his first 3 games with the team in NFL history. is probably is obvious, but he's the number one in terms of a guy that just joined the team in the middle of the season. All those guys are, either rookie was Cam Newton or guys who had come over in free agency on a new team. I think this could have changed a couple of franchises here because the Browns look like they're going to the playoffs here. I know they have a lot of injuries, and the offensive line was bad today, which is a pretty big concern. I mean, Flacco was under total heat. But they play the Texans, Jets, and Bengals, and the defense is awesome, and they're 9-5. Like, I think they'll be able to get in, whereas the Bears, their defense, again, played really well, I think, for the most part, and you see the vision of Eberflus, but I think this is a tough one for them to stomach, that you're not turning around Justin Fields in this offense, and then you're probably not keeping Matt Eberflus.
I just Flacco behind a bad offensive line doesn't feel sustainable, but also this just feels like a different type of year. Let's give the last word to Kevin Stefanski on that Hail Mary.
What's on your mind when it's sitting in his lap there?
I blacked out. I don't know.
How about you, Mark? What was your headspace on the Hail Mary?
I mean, I'm trying to watch all these games at the same time, and when I saw that happen, I thought, well,
in the one eye that was,
that's probably going to land in the lap of the.
Yeah.
Did it get spoiled by us on the other side, or no? Because
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the rest of the desks down there watching. I mean, it's 8 seconds ahead of what I'm watching.
Or maybe you're just learning about the outcome right now. I don't know.
You were actually, to be fair, you were just shouting, so I don't. So something happened.
Yeah, I went over there to watch the ending. David Njoku, I think, spoke for a lot of Browns fans. He was asked on it, and he said, I damn near shit myself, dog.
Fair enough. All right. Speaking of pooping themselves, the Packers and their defense welcome the Bucs to Lambeau Field today.
Shotgun look, low snap, pass by Baker Mayfield, caught ball, and a first down. It's Moore to the 40, inside the 35 to the 30, more to the 25 to the 20, more to the 10 to the 5. David Moore has scored a touchdown, Tampa Bay, on 3rd down and 3.
Wow, this is an out route, and what a great catch. I mean, this is in a group of bodies. Somehow Moore catches it, and then he's able to spin out of there and runs away from everybody to pick up the touchdown. That's a huge play.
All right. Thank you, David Moore. David Moore on the touchdown catch, Dave Moore on that color call, and that was, of course, Gene Deckerhoff with the call. WFUS. Baker Mayfield threw for 381 yards, 4 touchdowns, including that game clincher to Moore. He had a perfect passer rating, and the Bucs won their 3rd straight game. Who said nobody wants to win the NFC South? 34-20 over the Packers at Lambeau. The Bucs keep pace atop the NFC South. They're 7-7. And let's start. Well, let's give Baker his flowers because as we've been talking about Baker for a couple months on the show now about like how he's had like a nice little season. He's in a good spot. He's a little out of, not like under the microscope, and he's allowed to just do his thing and let's be honest, in a lesser division. And he's just confident and feeling himself. And this year, this game specifically was kind of like the high point of what's been a really a good year for him in his career, where he's reestablished himself. And I'm interested what his long-term future is in Tampa, especially if he keeps this up. Maybe it won't even be a question. But yeah, the Bucs deserve credit because they took this game early, go right down the field. They withstand an early Baker Mayfield turnover that sets up a Packers score early. And from that point on, they just dominate offensively. It was outrageous. And I was talking to Big Funk behind the glass. I don't know, and I know Joe Barry is a figure of suspicion for Packers fans. I don't know how many games I've seen this year that were as poorly played by a defense than what you saw from the Green Bay Packers. When you watch this game, you're going to be blown away by how many second and forever, 3rd and long. And Baker just sits back there, sets up a picnic blanket, looks for a wide receiver to get open, usually Chris Godwin, who was just rolling through the middle of the field the whole game, and just picking apart Green Bay's defense with ease. So it wasn't so much that Green Bay couldn't get the Bucs into bad positions. It was every time the Bucs got in a bad position, they couldn't cover anyone, and then Baker was hitting all the throws. So this Packers team...
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
And he was dangerous in this game. This Packers team And they are such a perfect example of the season in a nutshell, Mark. This Packers team that we're all so sky high on, they get beat by the Packers, the Giants on Monday night, and we're like, it's all right. Then you let the Bucs come in here and embarrass you, especially your defense, and you're like, Jesus, this is another pretender that we started to believe in.
Well, and it's like we mentioned on Thursday that this past week seemed to be like the bubbling up where everyone who's watching these games started to look at Green Bay and say, we can't trust you because of this defense. I mean, forget Jordan Love and him being up and down. It's like he's in a terrible position when you're down 20-10 and the Bucs are going all over the place.
Love played well in this game.
Right, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's just that they have a fatal flaw, and it's like it's a point where they're asking, LaFleur about Joe Barry in every press conference. And
I think we have that, actually.
Matt, would you ever consider an in-season change at coordinator?
Now's not the time for that, to be honest with you.
So there you go. You got LaFleur answering those questions and probably kicking himself because he was not going to admit it. He probably had doubts about Barry and the scheme going into the year, decided to ride with him, and it might get them beat in the end.
I'm not stunned by the defense, but I am stunned that the Bucs had it in them. I mean, that's the most offense they've had all year. That's the first opposing quarterback to ever go into Lambeau, the history of the stadium, and have a perfect passer rating.
Wow.
Baker.
It's just kind of wild.
Baker's been on like 17 teams.
Big Funk, let me know about that. I mean, I didn't know they added him. I didn't know Chris Godwin had like a 10 for 150 in him, and they're 7-7, and the Packers, who understandably were getting some buzz of like, maybe they're going to win this division 8 days ago. Like maybe they're going to end up catching the Lions from behind, are suddenly 11th in a pretty good-looking NFC wildcard picture where a lot of people won on Sunday and in a pretty brutal spot. And I don't think LaFleur is gonna. I mean, we'll see how the rest of the season goes because it's too early to bury any team. Who knows? The way the season goes, maybe they'll freaking win 3 straight. We got Todd Bowles going for multiple 4th downs late in the game. Things can change in life. Todd Bowles, how about it?
Yeah, no, well, yeah. Listen, they deserve credit. This was a big win, and I locked up the Packers.
Oh.
And I got to tell you something. And I'll say it again. I don't care if I'm 7-8. That was a fine lock. That was fine. It was a good lock. How do you predict that
in Green Bay,
that type of performance,
right?
That Baker would play at that level and the Green Bay Packers would be that bad? Because, like I said, their offense was not the problem. Green Bay continues to move the ball on offense, and I thought that there was a throw from Jordan Love that was one of the best of his young career on a scramble in the red zone that he just throws it on an absolute line to, I believe it was Jaden Reed, that once again reminds you that this dude has a very high ceiling, and the Packers are right to be patient with Love. So the offensive side of the ball, okay. The defense.
Right, their top 3 receivers today, Wicks, Kraft, and Reed, who combined for like 200 yards. First of all, no one had ever heard of any of them practically going into the season. They're in draft nicks. It's like mid-round rookies. Our 3 mid-round rookies. I mean, that's why I think you're getting that much production out of this offense.
Right. Overall, there is a lot has happened good for the Packers this season. Like this playoff thing was not something we were expecting necessarily. You could say the world would be a sunnier place if none of these teams from the South made the postseason. But Dan, like we've been saying, my choice is the Bucs because I think you've got real star power on that team. You've got Mike Evans, you got Godwin, Vita Vea, Antoine Winfield, and this version of Baker. Sure. It's like. Forget the rest of the teams.
Well, this version of Baker, they win the Super Bowl.
Well, right. But even in games where they've not been productive, he finds a way like late to do something crazy. And it's like, I think when he is a quarterback that when he's confident, it's a completely different version.
Oh, sure. And I think they have, to your point, the highest ceiling of these NFCs.
We could, there is a dark out timeline where we get 2 of these teams because right now they're pretty close,
Listen. We're going to get to
He also
Vikings.
finally benched Devin White, who's having a nightmare free agencies. I know he was inactive, but they essentially benched him, it sounded like.
We're going to get to the Vikings. We're talking about the Packers. We had all these teams that we had high hopes for at the bottom of the NFC, and they're just not taking the reins. Let's move to Miami.
Two under center. Back to throw, looking deep down the left sideline. He wants Waddle. He's got it! Touchdown, Miami! There's a new cheetah in town.
Boy, Jalen Waddle just smoked DJ Reed on coverage.
coverage man-to-man on the outside. And again, Tua looked it off and came back to him, so there was no help.
I couldn't really hear the song that they play, but I did see Stephen Ross in his suite doing the waddle dance. It's great.
Yeah, it's hard to unsee that.
Can't unsee it. It's there forever now. Jimmy Cephalo with the call with Joe Rose, WBGG, Raheem Mostert. Well, you heard waddle. And Tua threw for 224 in that one score. But Raheem Mostert had 2 more touchdowns. He sets a Miami single-season record with 20 on the year. It's December 17th. And the Dolphins shut out the Jets 30-0. Yeah, without Tyreek Hill. He was a game-time decision. They decided kind of the last second, they'll be all right without him. And they were. They embarrassed the Jets team that didn't show up in this game. They seemed totally puzzled. And the Dolphins, it wasn't just Tyreek Hill either. They were missing key players, multiple key players on both sides of the ball. And
9 missing starters overall.
It didn't matter because the Jets, who looked so mighty, or so it seemed last week against Houston, were unable to cross 100 yards of total offense until late in the fourth quarter. And I give credit. Miami in general played a really sound game on both sides of the ball. It was a really nice bounce back for the team after the disaster on Monday night that collapsed. But they really won the game because of Bradley Chubb, who I think he had either 3 or 3.5 sacks, causing turnovers, and the Miami pass rush that didn't need a blitz.
Miami
absolutely put a clown suit on all the Jets makeshift starters on that offensive line. By the end of the second quarter, Zach Wilson was gone with dehydration that turned into a concussion during halftime. And it was just basically coasting to the finish line from about the beginning of the second quarter on.
I think this Dolphins, because it's so easy just to laser focus on their offense and what Mike McDaniel has done and the stars on that side of the ball, but like their defense has been really interesting, even with Jalen Phillips out of the lineup. Like, you don't get too many drive charts like this. The Jets fumble, downs, 5 straight punts, an interception, another fumble, interception, end of game. I mean, they just never had a chance. I know they're not a good offense to begin with, but it's like Miami shut down the run entirely, and you're playing bad quarterbacks, but it's like they stomped them. And it's like, I think that, the Dolphins defense is not talked about enough.
No, they've been so much better in the second half of the season, and it should give Dolphins fans hopes that they have a chance in this AFC. I know you have disappointing nights like last week, but they're 10-4. This is a franchise that has not won a playoff game in 23 years. I mean, since 2000. They haven't won the division since, I think, 2008. So even though it's against the Jets, it's like these type of bounce-back games to try to set up winning that division, to try to put yourself in a position where you can win a first playoff game. That's big. And in this season where all these quarterbacks are getting hurt, like Tua's out there every week making good plays. He's not the MVP or anything, but he's very consistent in what he does.
Yeah, Tua is, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if I still have my doubts about the Dolphins in the big picture against the big boys, but they are what they can do to teams that are in disarray, that don't have their stuff together. It is a scary watch. Like, this game could have been the Miami, even being injury depleted. I think they could have scored 40 points easily in this game if they were a little more aggressive in the second half, and they chose not to be.
One thing I don't like is because I see that Austin Jackson, another offensive lineman, left with an oblique injury. I mean, they're banged up along the line. Like, they've had to go without guys week after week, and I think that really changes Tua's game in some of these like more premier matchups. Not today.
We'll see. Yeah,
I saw Raheem Mostert is up to 20 touchdowns on the season. That is 7 more than the Jets have scored as a team. Mostert, 4 more than the Panthers, a couple more than the Giants, the same as the Steelers and the Patriots. Raheem Mostert.
It can seem unfair when you could just roll him out. I don't even think he's the best running back on the team. I think Achane is a better player than him.
But he's healthy for once for the entire year. Like,
I wouldn't put him in the same bucket as like Jamal Williams, what he did with Detroit last year, but it's not far off from that, where they get inside the 5 and he's the guy, and they have such great scheming and the way McDaniels calls an offense that Mostert is like, it seems like he's like jogging in on these like tosses, and it's like, what a nice setup for him. As for the Jets, they were officially eliminated from playoff contention with the loss, and that makes it 13 consecutive years, which is the longest streak in North American sports. We have been doing this podcast for 11 years. So, yeah, we're still have not done a single show that involved the Jets in the playoff. I think this season, now that it's officially over, is as disappointing as any in my 35 years as a fan. Just the enormity and the consistency of the failure of this team it's hard to wrap your head around, and it makes me sad. It makes me mad. I think about my kids now are 9 and 7 in the window for them to kind of get into the Jets. That's shrinking. I think that I'm 43 and I still haven't watched a Super Bowl with my dad. That window is shrinking. And I know the Jets are, as Don Draper would say, pregnant right now. They're in a tough situation because it makes all the sense in the world for Woody to say, you know what? Joe Douglas has gotten like 4.5 years to build this roster into a real winner. And Saleh has a wretched record through 3 seasons. They looked like they quit in this game. It's just dark. You got to kind of blow this thing up. Nathaniel Hackett, great guy, but you got to fire him into the proverbial sun. But you can't tell me that that's definitely what's going to happen, because Rodgers and the idea that the Jets might just say, you know what, this was a lost year. Aaron's going to lift all the boats here. And that is a frustrating thing, because you feel like you're just handcuffed to a soon-to-be 41-year-old quarterback. So while I think they need to flush this regime, I just don't think it's necessarily what's going to happen. And then we have to just hope that Aaron saves the day come September. I would imagine, even though he's been cleared now, you're not going to see him next week or any time.
Well, that would be stupid for
now that they are mathematically eliminated. But honestly, when you're talking about a team like the New York Jets that have been a joke for a baker's dozen of years now, I have my doubts to even assume that we won't see Rodgers.
But even like in August, and coming off of Hard Knocks, and it's like we're gonna go get Dalvin Cook. We keep adding pieces. Sort of had this like Super Bowl or bust feel, because you only have Aaron Rodgers for 2 seasons. They're not a Super Bowl or bust situation with or without Rodgers. In fact, I think like the one blessing for Aaron Rodgers in all of this, because it's like, oh, if he were there, it'd be different. It's like, I think they'd be having a really rough season even with Aaron Rodgers, and I think he'd be suffering a lot of punishment.
And look at
with or
look
without.
At the offensive line. Watch this game if you stomach to. Watch how non-competitive that offensive line is in front of Zach Wilson and then Trevor Siemian, and then tell me, even if Rodgers' Achilles doesn't snap, that this season was going to be in a good place. And that is all on Joe Douglas, who preached when he was hired for that job in 2019. He preached that building a championship team is about building in the trenches, building in the offensive line. And while he's built a very good defensive line, this is arguably the worst O-line in football, and it's been that way for a couple of years. Injuries have played a role, but it's not just injuries. Gross. All right, let's head to New England, where Patriots fans have been dealing with some gross things as well this year.
Second down, goal to go at the 6. Mahomes pump faking, now turns left. Chase floats it for the back of the end zone. Caught! Clyde Edwards-Helaire! Touchdown! Kansas City! CEH! 9.5 yards deep in the end zone. Went up the elevator to get a 6-yard reception from Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs lead by 13.
Was Clyde Edwards-Helaire even active in the Super Bowl last year? He's like targeted in the red zone with this Chiefs team.
Well, they need him
today.
He
was active all of this season either, but injuries, and he's back.
Mitch Holtis with the call. Patrick Mahomes threw for 305 yards, 2 touchdown passes, 2 picks as well, including that score to CEH. And the Chiefs take care of business. Classic TCOB game. 27-17 over the moribund New England Patriots. And Mark, there was the obligatory drop from Kadarius Toney that turned into an interception.
Right.
But I think it was perhaps a good sign that the Chiefs even have the take care of business game in their arsenal still.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's not going to blow your doors off when you go watch it. There's still DNA shared with some of the Chiefs' problems from before. Mahomes had a second pick as well. Those 2 turnovers led to a touchdown and a field goal for the Patriots, who otherwise would have been like an apparition in this game. Edwards-Helaire did a nice job. It's like Pacheco, who I think he had surgery on his shoulder. I don't like that for this team either. But Jerick McKinnon played a role. Rashee Rice, 9 receptions, 91 yards, a receiving touchdown. So it's like we want to see more and more from him. And I think the story for them, the one thing that's been a beeline in most of these games, is the defense. It's not just what's up with the offense. It's like the defense. New England in the second half had 57 yards on 22 plays. 10 of their 17 points I mentioned were just a byproduct of like a short field and turnovers. It's like they were completely nullified. Now, that's not a surprise, but like this Chiefs defense can keep their offense afloat. It's not like if that side of the ball were falling in or caving in entirely, I would just think the Chiefs are going to get picked off in the playoffs. I still have a lot of suspicions about the way this offense is run, but they're doing what they can. They can't. There's not much they can do to change. So you need guys like Rice, McKinnon, the rest of them to be the best they can possibly be. And
they should win the division now. Going into this week, there's legitimate concern about the Broncos who are coming in their rear view. Still, I think they have to be a little worried that a defense probably that was setting out to stop Kelsey does 11 targets for 28 yards. He drops a touchdown. Like Kadarius Toney dropped a touchdown that was as easy as the one Kelsey did. People would be killing him too, and it's like
Kelsey hasn't had a good year.
It's not been a great year.
Had a good year.
Although the
you
numbers,
want to talk your shit?
It's funny.
It's just true. Look at the data point.
No, it's true, but I think he literally leads tight ends in yards this year.
But
so as much as I hear what you're saying,
same.
but I agree.
It's just not his. It's relative to Travis Kelce of the past.
Yeah, and I saw in this game how like Bill Belichick was punting 4th and 3 at the 50, down 17, and then down 2 touchdowns late. They were just eating up all the clock when they're on their own goal line. Like they weren't trying to hurry up at all. They were trying to end the game, even though they were down 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It was just like,
man,
that was a.
If there are people that saw their fantasy seasons end in the playoffs today, and you're like me, was a Patrick Mahomes fantasy manager, this was a perfect like distillation. Their first touchdown drive is a trick play where Jerick McKinnon shovels it to Rashee Rice. Right. And then the season ends, your season or their game ends, with the Chiefs kneeling it out to kill the last basically 2 minutes inside the Patriots 5. And not only are they not just like getting that extra touchdown, they're also, little minus rushes from Mahomes taking you down a little bit. You're like, this has been the worst experience I've ever had. I'm about to declare some type of jihad, like Matt Ryan style, after this Mahomes season.
Matt Ryan and you were never the same after that fantasy season from about 6
He's not
years
aware, but things are weird
you can
between
feel
Matt
it in the
and I.
atmosphere.
Yeah. Anything else on this game?
There was that report from our guy Ian that the decision hadn't completely been made on Bill Belichick's future. I thought was interesting on Sunday morning.
I'm ready to just like stash that story until January 8th or whatever.
Let's do it, because I think the key word was like no final decision had been made, but that indicates that like a preliminary decision had been made.
They did
just wait for
one little news item, like they did whack Andy Reid $100,000 and Patrick Mahomes $50,000 for their outburst in the
all right
from a week ago.
Yeah, makes sense. Heads up.
I mean, if you're Patrick Mahomes, that 50 grand, you don't even know that's just coming out.
Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break, and then we will continue on with the pipe. All right, welcome back. All right, let's now keep going. The Week 15 recap. Let's head to Nashville.
16-16, 2 seconds to go in overtime. 54-yard attempt, left hash mark. Here's the snap. Here's the spot. Here's the kick by Fairbairn.
Yes!
Good! The Texans win!
Yes!
Legendary! Fairbairn knocks it through from 54.
Where's your hat now, Vrabel?
The Texans defeat the former Oilers.
Put those uniforms back in the trunk.
Oh.
Yeah! Put that on your call of the year list.
Oh, Mark Vandermeer and Andre Ware, all sorts of pumped up. KILT. Kaimi Fairbairn kicked a 54-yard field goal as time expired in overtime. And the Texans, with Case Keenum at QB, rally from a 13-point deficit to beat the Titans 19-16 on the day. Titans leadership deemed it necessary to wear Houston Oilers throwback uniforms. Let's welcome in Nick Shook, the Pipe, who watched the Texans find a way without CJ Stroud.
Oh, no better way to recap someone piping a field goal than by bringing in myself. The
Good
pipe.
call. GC.
Guys. I mean, Kaimi Fairbairn drills a field goal to bring some excitement to an otherwise kind of dull game, if you really think about it. Both sides, Case Keenum outplayed Will Levis, but that's statistically, not really visually. The second half was really the story and the difference there. But the big story was Mr. Devin Singletary, the outcast from Buffalo, carrying the load for the Houston offense without CJ Stroud involved. 26 carries, 121 yards, no touchdowns, but he paced that offense when they certainly needed it, kind of unlocked it, allowed them to throw the football a little bit more in the second half. They consistently outgained Tennessee, and I keep trying to say Houston because they were wearing those uniforms. So a little bit of revenge, I think, because of the uniforms for the Texans, who get a much needed win in a game that for about a quarter and a half, 2 quarters looked like they might, get blown out just because they didn't have their quarterback. So Texans still right in the thick in the AFC South.
Shooky Singletary almost had he did have a walk-off touchdown in overtime as well. They got brought back by a holding, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, he had a big day. He's picked up the slack for that backfield.
A little peek behind the glass. It was during the fourth quarter that I realized that this wasn't my game, that there had been some rotating. Yeah. Well, so I watched it pretty closely, and like on the uniform front, I thought it was a little bit ridiculous that they showed that Mike Vrabel was walking around in a Bum Phillips cowboy hat before the game. They really leaned into all that, and they got their comeuppance. I thought that essentially the Texans did a really nice job of Bobby Slowick of not playing around Case Keenum, but putting him into a position because of the way they use Singletary to kind of thrive down the stretch. And there were a couple moments where I thought the defense too, Jonathan Grenard doesn't get talked about a lot. Like, this is a really well-coached defense. And I thought that they punished Levis, who left with an injury at the end. It sounds like he's going to be okay, but he was limping around. I thought he was gone for the year initially when he got whacked.
Yeah, this is a defense that, and I'm sure Greg would like to point this out because I know we've talked about this in past weeks, that they've given up a ton of points to different teams in the past. They've been a sieve at times. I think about the Baker Mayfield game where CJ Stroud had to outplay him to get them that victory. They haven't been consistent, but I was pretty shocked, very impressed today by their performance because it was an offense that struggled to get going, and the defense had to keep them in the game. And they were able to do that and kind of allow them to get their footing in the second half. Again, kind of playing around Case Keenum to a degree before he was able to find a bit of footing. But overall, I love that you brought up Grenard. This is a game in which Jimmy Ward was, lost pretty early because he got dinged, a little bit of a friendly fire situation, and yet they were able to overcome. So it's a good win for them because of where they came from last week. I felt like, even in the first quarter of this game, I was very conflicted about your team of ATN pick. You went with the Vikings over the Texans, and from afar with no voice in there, I thought, man, they should have gone Texans. They're the more enjoyable team to watch. And in the second quarter, I'm going, you know what? I'm glad I didn't say that on record because they're not looking very good right now. But luckily, they turned it around.
It was 13-0. The defense pitched. They gave up a touchdown drive, the first drive of the game for the Titans. They pitched the shutout the rest of the way because the only other points came off of turnovers in their end where they held up 10 straight drives. Singletary had 170 yards. The Titans had 204. That's a pretty dominant day by them. And Case Keenum just starting for another franchise. And I know he used to start for this franchise again, but getting another replacement win in a spot I didn't even know he was going to play all week. We thought it was going to be Davis Mills because he's been the backup all year. And then afterwards he's quoted saying I'm built for this. And you know what? He is right. He is built for winning a week 15 start against the Titans wearing Oilers uniforms. That actually is exactly what Case Keenum is built for. Maybe nothing else, but that's it. And it might be the difference between them making the playoffs and not.
And in fairness, they're probably like the rest of us, where Davis Mills and Case Keenum are the same person. It's fine.
It's not.
They're very different height-wise, neck-wise. They're very different. But yes,
the neck.
Hey, if one guy understands Houston, it's Case Keenum, who went to the University of Houston.
There you go.
He's got some ties there.
Anything else on this game, Shooky?
That defense, again, last 4 drives for the Titans. Punt, go to overtime, punt, and another punt in overtime. That's a great way to get a win on the road.
And thank God, Kaimi, shout out, because we didn't need a tie in the mix. The last thing this season needs is a tie to muck up the standings any further. So we get a nice
54-yarder. That's nice
win. That doesn't even matter anymore. The Matt Prater hit one from 58 today, and nobody even batted an eyelash.
Right,
we don't care anymore. Shook. You had a nice dinner this weekend, as I understand.
Oh yeah, we went out a few times this weekend. My fiance graduated with her doctorate from Cleveland State. She's
cheers,
congrats,
wonderful.
All right. So
good for you too, buddy.
Her, I require anybody who sees her, you must refer to her as Dr. Bridget from here on out. That's the rule.
When you get married, can you take her name so then we have to call you Dr. Shook? I think that's how it works. the transfer.
I don't think he becomes a doctor.
I think the official title, I think you can get away with it legally.
I don't know. I was never good at math, so I don't quite understand the transitive property, but we'll have to double check on that. But yes, that dinner. So that dinner, guys, I'm sitting there, Great Lakes Brewery in Cleveland, right? Having a nice time, go home, pull up Twitter about 5 hours later, and I see I have a mention from someone who happened to be in the same setting. He said, hey, me and my buddies almost took your table from your party. Wanted to stop by and say, hey, but, didn't want to interrupt you. I would like to buy you a beer, but, you are the pipe. I don't know if you have time. Got to get back to the weight. So thank you guys for making me the smallest of Cleveland.
Oh, not the smallest, one of the biggest.
You know what? The universe is growing because Zumwalt told us he was at, I think, a soccer game over the weekend, and an ATN listener, it came up that Jay's the voice of the podcast now, and the friend was like, or the guy in the soccer field was like, can you do the intro for me?
I mean, how did they even know it was him? That's amazing.
Well, he must have explained.
He must have had a call.
He's wearing a T-shirt that said, "I'm the voice of the Around the NFL podcast."
Do you think he's going to get that more than the fact that he voiced a video game character in one of the largest video games of about a decade ago?
Cousin, yeah,
Nico, would you like to go bowling?
That is currently Jason's claim to fame, but I don't know. He's starting to make some inroads here at NFL Media. Shooky, thank you, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
All right, so thank you to Shook. Let's hit up these Saturday games. Let's knock these out. There were 3 played on Saturday of Week 15. Let's start in Cincinnati.
This will be from 29 yards away, from straightaway, shorter than an extra point. Looking for the 7th walk-off field goal of his NFL career and his 2nd in a span of 3 weeks. Robbins ready to hold. The snap, the placement, the right-footed kick. It is good.
Oh, yeah, baby.
And the Bengals are still alive in the playoff hunt as they rally from a 14-point deficit in the 4th quarter and beat the Minnesota Vikings in overtime.
Yeah, that's I'm talking about the Bengals. That's what a real team does. At the very least, I don't even need you to win a Super Bowl. I don't even make the playoffs. But at least get me to Christmas Eve. Give me a Christmas morning where my team is still in the mix. That's what Bengals fans can say after another memorable Jake Browning afternoon. He led Cincinnati to 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns and directed the game-winning drive in OT that led to that field goal that allowed the Bengals to knock off the Vikings 27-24. So the Bengals are still alive in the AFC playoff race. They got to keep winning. They don't have a lot of tiebreaker help, but they got to keep winning, and that's what they've been doing. And they've also put, Greg, the football world on notice that they are more than their injured superstar QB.
I was so impressed how they came back. This was the game of the weekend by far. It was actually, I think, one of the most entertaining games of the season, just in terms of things happening that were crazy. The Vikings hadn't allowed a touchdown for almost 3 games by the time they got to the 4th quarter. And then they give up 3 in the 4th by Browning. I just think of the plays that he had to make, that they had to make to go win this game. There was a 3rd and 21 conversion to Jamar Chase before Jamar Chase left the game with a shoulder injury. Great throw to Chase, and you got to get on the Brian Flores defense for kind of struggling to finish off some games this season. This has been a bit of a trend. Chase goes out with an injury. They also lost DJ Reader, unfortunately, for the season to a quad injury right off the bat.
He's blown both quads now in his career.
It's really sad because he's entering a free agency year, and he was playing great, and that is devastating. But Browning gets that 3rd and 21. They get a touchdown. They need a touchdown on their last drive, and T. Higgins makes one of the plays of the year by mossing the defensive back of Caleb Evans at the catch point and then reaching across with 34 seconds to go. That was outrageous.
Right, and no look reach.
I would say that's like if you looked at the catches of the decade,
right?
Like past 10 years, that's in the top 10. That was incredible.
That was there. Before that, it kind of got lost in the shuffle. Joe Mixon got absolutely stoned on a 4th and goal at the goal line. They weren't going to get any points at the 2-yard line, and he somehow runs over Ivan Pace. And then the final one, Browning on the move, and this is the one that I give him the most credit for. a dime to Tyler Boyd when they were in a long yardage situation and it looked like they were going to punt the ball back in overtime, and that sets up the game winner. I mean, like, I don't think it's that fluky. I think Jake Browning and the way they're playing offense is really effective right now.
I have, like, bad eyesight, obviously. So, like, on our NFL Plus things, I have to wear glasses to even see the monitor over there. So, like, I was watching this one.
And if you haven't seen the show, think Junior Soprano, really like a Coke rim thick.
Well, they're terrible. Like, they're not, you shouldn't be wearing them on screen because they're reflective. So it just looks like I have like light burning out of my eyes. But anyways, like, I was watching this from a distance initially, and from a distance, like, Jake Browning, to me, if it was just like, that's actually just Joe Burrow. I know they're not exactly the same physically, but it's like what they're doing with the offense and who he is. It's like, I don't feel this is a big step down from Joe Burrow. I really don't. Like, what we've seen over this small I'm not saying, universally, or that's his career. Or
the ball doesn't have the same zip, but he has got the moxie.
There's something about him where it's like, and I think if we're going to credit Stefanski for what he's done with backup quarterbacks, like Zach Taylor in the last 3 games and what he's done with Browning, and part of it is just Browning and who he is, and he's extremely confident. This is working, and it's like the Bengals are an absolute factor, and a mystery factor to me. It's like I don't want to deal with this team down the stretch. Like, Cleveland plays them in that Week 18 tilt. I think that's going to be very important for both teams.
Here's a good stat from ESPN. Browning completed 10 of 14 passes for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns to his wide receivers on the final 6 drives. And like we said, we don't know how serious this Jamar Chase injury is, but it obviously is something to keep an eye on. But like the Browns, who you just brought up, this team is showing that they find a way to keep it going. And I think we've talked about it because we got to get to the team of ATN. But we talked about T. Higgins has had a really rough contract year. It's funny how almost like one game, island game, in a lot of ways could restore his prospects in free agency, because he showed in multiple points in this game what kind of talented player he is, and the instincts on that touchdown, incredible.
You're right, and it was a tough one for the team of ATN here. You have
17-3 in the fourth quarter.
You have a 17-3 lead in the fourth quarter.
I mean, we have cursed this
24-17 with 3:48 to play.
And then you give up 2 touchdowns. You respond. Nick Mullins, who had overall, even though he threw for 303 yards and 26 for 33, had a regrettable day. Probably the worst interception of the entire season, wherein he was falling down and just kind of gave it to the defensive lineman. I mean, that was...
Did you see Desmond Ridder today? There's
he somehow was like, I'll see your touchdown, Josh Dobbs, when you were falling down and throwing it, and I will top you like an all-timer. The defensive lineman for the Bengals said, like, I couldn't believe what he was doing, like, when he was doing it. But then he drives them down the field, even though they dropped, there was a pick 6 that got overturned at one point. He could have thrown like 4 or 5, but he drives them down the field, responds, makes a crazy pass that he never should have tried to Jordan Addison on the goal line, where Kevin O'Connell made a curious call, and our guy Chris Rose had a great call on it, where he was kind of like, what are you doing? But it works out.
Yeah.
And so they're up 7 points before that, and they get a possession in overtime where O'Connell just feels like he got in his own head.
I mean, I don't like the prospects. We'll talk about the Lions in a minute, but they got the Lions twice, sandwiched around Green Bay.
They had to win
the Vikings.
They
needed to. They were in a great position to stop the bleeding, because, like, they've lost 3 of 4, and some of it's on the coaching, some of it's on the decisions. You're flip-flopping quarterbacks left and right, and Mullins is Mullins.
Right. He has one of the worst interception rates in the history. I think he has the worst interception rate in the history of pro football for anyone that's thrown over 500 attempts. But I didn't think he was like
I was going to say
that crazy bad.
Terrible.
He's the second string quarterback. Really is like almost a third string guy. That defense, who we've been pumping up, has 2 chances to close out the game, and they can't do it.
Right. But when I was saying I think O'Connell got in his own head, they get the ball in overtime. They move it to the opposite 41-42. They're on the edge of field goal range. They need about a yard to get a first down. And Ty Chandler, who all day has been making O'Connell look bad because he looks so good, 23 for 132, and all the Vikings fan and media who all season have been saying, we've seen Ty Chandler. He has so much more juice than anyone else on the roster. Why don't you give him the rock? Finally, they're forced to because Madison's out. He goes 23 for 132. They need a foot on 3rd and 1, and they call it tush push. with Mullins, with 180-pound Brandon Powell behind him, and one of the worst run-blocking centers in front of him, and Nick freaking Mullins at quarterback, and it doesn't work. And you're like, okay, it's now 4th and a foot. At least we get another try at this. It's overtime. They call the same play again. Yeah. It doesn't work, and they're going home like 6 plays later.
That's the second time in 3 weeks that Minnesota coaching kind of gaffed and yacked on their own shoes in a big spot in the game. And when you are a fringe team, when you don't execute and you don't call the game the right way, that's how you get beat. Now, only thing I'll say about Team of ATN, we got to keep moving here. It's the 7-7. That's an out-of-conference loss, so tiebreaker-wise, not as killer. But geez, come on, guys.
They are still in the playoffs as of this recording.
Right. Well, so are 28 other teams, but
no, actually, the exact amount of teams that'll make the playoffs.
Well, I'm saying that they're just some part of this milquetoast, just middle of the road soup.
Keep calm, and carry on.
I'm agitated about this team right now.
Listen, we're all upset.
This one was tough.
We're all upset.
This one was tough.
We're all hurt and vulnerable, but we're in this together.
What if the Bengals were the team of ATL? What if the Bengals were?
We can't do it, Mark. We can't do that to ourselves.
I know.
Sorry.
I did find myself kind of enjoying this Bengals experience, if nothing else. They're a fun
We can't speak that out loud.
Okay.
That's inside the house talk.
Well, get us to the next game then.
All right, to Indianapolis.
Oh, good job locking up the Bengals there, West Bros. They were sweating it out. They've had a few like this.
Sweating that one out.
They've won them.
All right, let's keep moving.
Trey Sermon, the back left of Gardner Minshew, drops the throw on first down. Over the middle, zips it, caught it, and it's a touchdown. Mo Alley Cox, touchdown as he walks across the goal line. Touchdown, INDY. One play, no problem. 18 yards to the tight end, and the Colts lead 20-13.
Ooh, backup QBs everywhere you look. That is Matt Taylor with the call, WFNI. Gardner Minshew matched his career high of 3 touchdown passes. His team ran for 170 yards. That's how you help out a Gardner Minshew type. And the Colts stay in the playoff picture with a 30-13 win over the Steelers, who, to quote the great late poet Thomas Earl Petty, are free-falling out into nothing. Mark? The Colts spotted the Steelers 13 points early. Didn't matter. It wasn't even close to matter.
Scored 30
The Steelers, the last 3 games have been absurd with this team.
Steelers are cooked. We talked about the Colts a couple weeks ago, and I know that the response in general was, well, yeah, okay, they're around, but they're not doing a lot for me. But I would just say this, there's a lot of teams like that, and they're consistently really well coached, and it's they didn't blink when they were down 13-0. And when you get the version of Minshew that can produce, and they have no Anthony Richardson. Jonathan Taylor is not in the lineup right now. They lost Zach Moss in this game. Michael Pittman goes down. Guys like Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson are coming in and carrying the ground game.
Right.
And I think that Shane Steichen, week after week, has a good game plan. And it's there's something about this team that I trust them to find a way into the playoffs. Who knows what will happen? But a lot of these guys are the same players who were on the roster last year when that thing free fell into nothing. And it's the same.
Wait, you can't take Tom Petty's line. I just said Tom Petty's line.
Well, you hear it.
I was connecting it to what you said. I'm trying to.
Did you give him credit?
That is not the first time that was ever said in human history, but he made that phrase very famous.
Did he give anyone credit during the song? Because he probably wasn't the first.
You would side against Tom Petty. This is your lowest moment, Greg. I understand everything you're saying, Mark.
I would say Steichen is 4-0 against Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, and Mike Tomlin this season. That's good.
Well, who are the teams? Not the coaches. Who are the teams?
All right, but
I'm just saying
he's just going up and not.
They are good at beating the fakes.
No.
That's
This is why Shane Steichen will win Coach of the Year if he goes 10-7. In a day like this where it is Trey Sermon and Goodson, and you lose your 2 best players. You mentioned Pittman and Moss, 2 of your best players, and you at a halftime or in the second half have a drive where you run it 13 straight times. That take up 8:57. We're not even going to let Minshew throw a pass. I think eventually he did, and it didn't work, and then they kicked the field goal, but it didn't matter. They ended the game that way. They out-Steelers the Steelers. They were tougher than Pittsburgh on both fronts. I mean, their offensive line did a really nice job in this game. I think Minshew's had his best 2-game stretch of the season. I know they only scored 7 points offensively, but I thought he played well last week. And they lose Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Steelers. Like, the Steelers are out of ideas. They're punting in spots they need to take a field goal. Like, I think in Pittsburgh, people are wondering, like, is Mike Tomlin totally safe? Like, that's a question for another day. But it is impressive to me, to Mark's point. He's taking all these same players. I think he's going to win Coach of the Year at this rate.
And to what you said before, they ran the ball on 20 of the final 21 plays, and it worked.
That's crazy.
I just don't have to take him seriously, though.
Right, and I don't. No, but I actually don't think they will.
I give them credit because
there are 5, 8, and 6 teams
there's
right
so
now.
many teams.
Only 2 will get in.
There's so many teams that we've talked up more. I'll use the Vikings or the Packers as examples. Like, oh, this is a game you should take care of business against the team that you're better than, and then they go and get beat. Like, the Colts are a team that have proven they're a kind of a step ahead of the real mediocre in the league.
I would just say, like their fan bases, like Chargers fans, if any of them exist, like they're thinking like we're in a lot of trouble. Like Colts fans could be like, we've got a coach that is going to be around for a long time.
And oh, by the way, their defensive line, like Odengbo and Ebukam and everyone, like, it's easily the best of the entire Chris Ballard era. Like, EJ Speed had a big-time game at linebacker. They have things they can feel good about for when Richardson gets back, and they might just get into the playoffs. 5 teams again at 8 and 6. At this point, only 2 of those 5 would get in if the Browns do make it.
Let me see. Let me look at this. At Falcons, home Raiders, home Texans. Okay.
I mean,
so
2
they'll
and
be
1.
playing on Saturday.
2 and 1.
They'll be playing on Saturday.
I mean, 2 and 1 right now. I've been saying all along, if you win 10 games, you're probably in. That's still true. Like, probably meaning more than 50%. But the way it's shaping up, some 10 and 7 team or 2 might be sitting at home watching because a lot of these teams are winning right now.
All right, let's hit the final game on Saturday. To Detroit we go.
Goff takes, wants to throw on 4th and 2. Lot of time, throws, end zone, caught, touchdown. Number 3 on the night for Sam Laporta. On 4th down, Goff came out throwing, found 87 running wide open in the end zone. It's now the Lions 41 and Denver 17.
Woo. Dan
Old
Miller.
team of ATL, let's bring them back.
Can't do it. We set them free.
We're a mess.
Dan Miller, WXYT. Jared Goff matched a career high with 5 touchdown passes, 3 to rookie tight end Sam Laporta. The Lions hammer the Broncos 42-17. Greg, exactly the type of the game the Lions needed. Swagger restored.
Yeah, I did not expect this. You know, they were stopped on their first few drives, and at that point they had gone 10 straight drives without scoring at all over the last couple games. And then they went 5 straight touchdown drives. And these weren't just touchdown drives. They were fast touchdown drives. All of them 4 minutes or less. Just like, we're going to go right down the field. And it's a little unfair to Russell Wilson. But I saw this idea in The Athletic, and I thought it was really smart. This matchup sort of was what the Russell Wilson trade wrought in some ways. It's not Russell Wilson's fault. But they haven't had a top 50 pick in the draft for years because of the Russell Wilson trade for 2 years. And who's scoring all the touchdowns on the other side? Jahmyr Gibbs, who that plan to sit him early in the season, it's worked. He's right now a top 5 running back, period, and is as explosive as anyone. Another top 50 pick. Laporta is going crazy. All these young guys in Detroit showing what you can do when you build around draft picks and their quarterback, who's kind of a mid-level quarterback versus another mid-level quarterback. They don't have any picks, and I just am so impressed with the Lions. I know they're not perfect, but they've taken that next step in the way they're building this team.
Yeah, and they're the opposite of the team we just talked about, the Colts, because all these guys you mentioned were not on the roster last year. They're drafting well. They're organizationally well built. And like when you get Goff playing like you did yesterday, that's the Lions team that could hang with anyone.
They had all 5 of their offensive linemen stay healthy throughout the whole game. I think that might be the first time all season, actually. So like they're getting healthier. They might get C.D. Deuce back, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They might get Aleem McNeil back, and then James Houston, a pass rusher. So on defense, they told the broadcast crew, we're going to be way more aggressive. We've been sitting back, and at least for this game, it worked. They blitzed.
You did get Sean Payton getting into it with Russell Wilson.
Ooh, that was spicy.
I didn't see that. What happened?
Screaming at Russell Wilson on the sideline.
He did. Do we have the sound of Sean Payton talking about that Russell Wilson back and forth, because it was nice.
Was upset about the call. That's all. Simple. That's it. No, I was upset at the call.
You're upset with the call?
listen, what I talk with Russell about, it's none of your business.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a frustrating night for Peyton and company. You thought maybe this was your chance to announce yourself in a primetime game as, take it seriously, just beat the Chargers, get over 500. Instead, you're dropped into that beefy middle class again. You do get the Patriots next week, but that was not a good showing.
They could go 3-0. They will need to possibly make it, but their schedule allows it. But this, I think, was a kind of an eye opener that
loud reveal.
Yeah, we maybe can't really hang. And I give Aaron Glenn some credit. Melifonwu, their safety, who came in off the bench, had like a career day, and they were just way more aggressive, like trying to take it to the Broncos with a lot of blitzes, a lot of crazy stuff. The fumble by Russell Wilson early was big.
Yeah, that was a great weekend for the Lions, who say bye-bye to the Packers in the division race. Jared Goff has a good pick-me-up game, 5 freaking touchdowns. So very nice for the former team of ATN. Let's take a break and finish out Sunday. All right, welcome back. Time now for the Sunday Drive presented by the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Let's head to the desert where the Niners kept doing Niners things.
Now they're going to spread him out. Brock goes into a shotgun. Ayuk goes out wide right, watched by Antonio Hamilton. Jawan Jennings goes in the right slot, watched by the safety Jalen Thompson. Purdy looks right. Now comes back middle. Wide open McCaffrey. Touchdown! CMC!
With a beautiful Cali route. What a play by Christian McCaffrey.
Greg Papa and Tim Ryan with the call, KNBR. Some of the touchdowns that the Niners scored today were just totally uncontested. There was a Debo touchdown to start the scoring. Or Debo Samuel, who's the most dangerous offensive player in the sport right now, you could argue. I think he's up to 2. I don't know. I got a 39 on a state-mandated test back in 96, but I could tell you he's had a lot of touchdowns, multiple touchdowns all month, and he goes completely unnoticed in motion and just rolls out. Purdy just turns and goes, yeah, all right, here we go.
Why pay attention to Debo Samuel?
Essentially jogs into the end zone to get the scoring going in what was another blowout win for the mighty Niners. 45-29. It clinches the NFC West title, moves their winning streak to 6 consecutive games, and the Niners, like I said last week, are simply inevitable right now. Christian McCaffrey, 2 interesting things here in the MVP watch. Dak melts down in Buffalo. Purdy has another crystal clear, clean game with 4 touchdowns. I think he takes a big lead in the MVP, with Christian McCaffrey now coming off just one of those games when he goes into the Hall of Fame one day, if his body allows him just to hang around for a few more years at this level. He's a Hall of Fame player. He was just absolutely a nightmare. And this was a bad matchup for Arizona's defense and the type of defense they play. McCaffrey is a guy who just absolutely savages teams that play a lot of zone, and he went for 115 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He had 5 catches for 72 yards through the air with 2 touchdowns. So it was just outrageous what you got from McCaffrey, and a reminder of the power of this team. The biggest scare mark would be Brock Purdy takes a nasty shot to the face and neck. Was flagged for a penalty, and he's down on the turf writhing. And they're like, oh, my goodness, not Purdy. And he goes into the blue tent, but he ends up just missing about 3 plays. This is in the first half. Comes back in and goes right down the field and then throws another touchdown pass. So the Niners keep rolling.
Yeah, if you're a Niners fan, you just hope that you remain charmed on the injury front. It's been pretty good for them overall. And just to your point on Debo Samuel, the touchdown to George Kittle, it's like, I'm sorry, is anyone on defense wondering that George Kittle is involved on this play? It's just simply it wasn't even a great throw because he kind of leaped for it, but it was like wide open. Like, these guys are just like, the way that they create passing routes for them, it's like they are wide open.
I think it was Kittle didn't have a score in this game.
Well, it was one where he got to run for it after he caught it. I mean, and listen, I get it that no one cares about QB rating, but just as a relative mark of where Brock Purdy is, he has 1,300+ passer rating games in his first 20 appearances. Only Patrick Mahomes and Kurt Warner had more. And so, yes, it's an environment of the Niners around him, but we just say it every week. It's like Purdy is like he stirs the drink, and it's like they're this absolute unstoppable machine right now. And it's like the Cardinals put up 234 yards on the ground. If I knew that ahead of time, I thought maybe they're finding a way to like stay on the field and keep the Niners offense off. And it's like, I don't think so. The Niners put up 45 points, and there's an effortless nature to it.
Right. I mean, this game was kind of the case for and against Purdy because his numbers are going to be so off the charts now, efficiency-wise, and it was absolutely perfect. And then, as you point out, like 3 of the touchdowns, there was not anyone in an area code, and that's just how it worked out. But I don't think they're sweating it. I think McCaffrey's going to, if he keeps it going and gets, like, let's say 2,300 yards from scrimmage and 26 touchdowns, he's going to get some votes too, and he should. Like, he's that good. He's at 20 touchdowns now and over 1,700 yards from scrimmage, but I don't think they're worried about it. They're pretty psyched they won the division. You could hear it in Kyle Shanahan's voice just saying, like, they are pumped. And
it's just the first step.
Yeah, they really want to get 2 home games, and I think they are on track to do it.
Oh, yeah. I think they are the heavy favorite for that 1 seed. I don't know what Kyle Shanahan said, but I almost am certain someone said, hey, this is just the first step.
Yeah.
They do love to say that.
You got that coach speak down. I think you've got a beat on that.
Thank you. We've been doing this podcast a long time. The only thing I'll say as we move on is, should I get a little bit nervous about giving up 234 yards on a day when you were playing a little shorthanded? Maybe, but I almost sense, Mark, last week, maybe a little bit too, this is so easy for the Niners right now that they're not even playing at their peak sharpness right now with some of these lesser opponents, and they're just buzzsawing everybody. Anyway.
One little thing about that, Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, both not active today, and Nick Bosa looked banged up too. So I don't know. There were periods where like they didn't have their full cast and crew out there, and you know, Arizona's has been a good.
It didn't matter.
Well, it's a league-wide trend right now. All these defenses, which are great, and most of these teams are on teams that are leading. By the way, the way to beat them is to run. It's true for the Cowboys against them, and so it's true for the 49ers. It's certainly true for the Jets, which have a great defense. It's true for the Ravens. I would even say, as good as the Browns are, it's probably true for all the best defenses. If you're going to beat them, you'll probably do it running. They'll give it up there. And so that is a little bit of a concern.
And the only
but
way,
I don't know who's going to expose it in the NFC. There's not right now.
I mean, we have to like fish deep into the sea for a concern about the Niners.
Well, no, they're kind of an average rush defense in general.
Yeah, but it's like
for what it's worth.
If they stay healthy, the only way to beat this team literally is to do one of those games where you keep the time of possession way in your favor, and running the football is a good way to do that. That was the Sunday Drive presented by Toyota. Let's go places. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Let's head across the sidewalk here.
Up to the 38 with a first down on the first snap of the third quarter. Stafford from a strong right set. Play fakes, set up to throw. Full send, deep down the left side.
Where is the coverage?
Untouched to the end zone. Don't look now.
Joe Barry on this staff too?
He is. Cooper Kupp for the third week in a row. 62 yards from Matthew Stafford.
Sorry, JB. Tucked over in a cup line there.
I think you seem to want to jump into some of these booths.
I'll see JB at the barbershop maybe.
Yeah.
I'll offer an apology. All right. Cooper Kupp all alone down the sideline against the worst pass defense in the NFL. Matthew Stafford hits him. Stafford throws for 258. He also hooked up with Demarcus Robinson for another touchdown. And the Rams, they hang on for a 28-20 win over the Commanders, who, like I said, haven't won in multiple months now. Who was on this one?
I was.
Greggy, talk about it.
I think you could use the word moribund to describe this Washington team, at least until Jacoby Brissett came in with about 10 minutes to go. Because, look, the Rams totally dominated this game. It was encouraging to see that.
Slice me off a piece of that Jake Brisket.
Rags, always welcome.
It's too long since we heard him. Like, they were doing everything. You had the Stafford trick shots, you had the hole shots, you had the arm angles, you had it all. But one thing I like about this Rams team is that when they need to run, they absolutely can. Like short yardage, they're a very good team. Just handing it to Kyren Williams. And this game got so stupid late because they gave up 2 touchdowns to Jacoby Brissett, who came in for Sam Howell, that they had to pick up a first down or two to close off the game, and they didn't get fancy. They just handed off to Kyren Williams 4 times for 20 yards, game over. And that's a part of this Rams team I don't think nationally people have caught up to quite as much, that they are a very good, like, straight ahead power running team.
Howell get benched?
Howell got removed, but Ron Rivera said
that sounds more serious.
He got taken out of the game, but Rivera said he's still our starter and he's going to start next week. But he was terrible in this game, I would say, and he's been bad for about 3 or 4 weeks. I think his worst stretch of games has been the last month, 26 passes for 102 yards. And then Jacoby Brissett comes in there, 8 for 10, 124, 2 touchdowns. He probably won some fantasy leagues for people who
nobody's starting him anymore,
who
right?
started Terry McLaurin, who finishes 6 for 141 for 1. Or he frustrates the hell out of the Terry McLaurin owners that gave up on him finally. And I benched
you got Scary Terry sitting on your bench tonight with 38 points or whatever. That's a rough one. Hey, that incredible sequence, McLaurin 48-yard catch to the LA1.
Oh my God.
4:47 to play. So a touchdown is taken off the board by an offensive pass interference. Then the drive gets extended on a pass interference call on 4th down. The Commanders take 8 snaps without scoring before Brisket hits Samuel. More than 3 minutes had passed on the clock, and then on top of it, Greggy, obviously we see it all the time now. Remember, you just said it on Monday night that finally it's going to be official, that everyone's always going to do it. They're down 14. They decided to kick the extra point because, of course, Ron Rivera is probably not even aware that that's a thing. And the kick gets blocked, and it's just kind of a fitting way for Washington to lose yet again.
That was the worst game management I think I've seen all season, because the touchdown was on the board. It was 28-20 with 4:55 left. Then it's reversed, and they have it first to goal at the 1. And they bled the clock down to under 5 seconds for their next 3 plays. They bled 3 minutes off the clock.
Do you think that's on? Do you put a little bit? Because I would say that it's not just Ron Rivera. You've got Eric Bieniemy involved in that. You've got Brissett, who's not been on the field in like months.
I think that might have been part of it, that it was Brissett, but it's more on the offensive coaching set. But it's Rivera. It's everything. I mean, that was ugly, but nice to see Stafford, who leads the NFL in EPA and success rate since week 11, according to Next Gen Stats, when he's in rhythm. I like that. Like 2.5 to 4 seconds letting go of the ball.
You know what else great. Stafford leads?
What?
League in? Gregg Rosenthal newsroom moans.
I mean, his throws are crazy.
It's like at a certain point, I have to like check to make sure Gregg's pants are still on with some of these.
The best throw of the game was when Kyren Williams dropped. Stafford's under pressure. He has to let it go about 7 seconds early and just throw it up as high as possible to get rid of it. And Kyren Williams dropped that one. But my God, is this guy playing well?
I look over at Mark when all these just men moaning. To look for his reaction. Mark just stone-faced looking straight ahead. So maybe not out of the ordinary. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I'm very plugged into my job, but I don't know if I don't think too many things on the football field elicit the same reaction that you get from Gregg when he's like deeply wound in something.
To the Superdome.
Carr back to throw, looking for the end zone, and he gets the touchdown to number 80, Jimmy Graham, the touchdown man.
Can you say wide open?
He was wide open.
Just makes you scratch your head. I'll just leave it at that.
Can we just stop complaining? Shut up. Saints Nation, stop complaining. It doesn't, even the touchdown call. Oh, if only Jimmy Graham was playing 80%. Jimmy Graham was like 50 years old. If Jimmy Graham was playing more snaps, maybe the Saints would be better this year. You just won another game easily. You're in first place, okay? And maybe my team hasn't been to the playoffs in 13 years. And we're banging on the Saints coaching staff after Jimmy Graham scores a touchdown. Enough! Derek Carr passed for 3 touchdowns. And the Saints took the sauce and the mutz off Tommy Cutlets in a 24-6 win over the Giants at the Superdome. The win keeps the Saints, as I said, tied atop the NFC South with 3 games to play. Good job, Saints. They're absolutely in the mix to win this division. Back-to-back one-sided wins for the much-derided hometown team.
Yeah, I would say that any Saints fan would have to say it and acknowledge, like, this was the Derek Carr game you're waiting for on some level.
Let's hear from Dennis Allen.
Sure.
I don't know if I'm going to get any questions about the quarterback this week, but I thought the quarterback played really well. So we'll make sure we get that on record.
Oh my God. That was,
and I know, and that's a troll job of all these people.
Yeah.
In and around the Saints, both the people that cover them, the fans of the team. I see you, Dennis Allen, because I get it too.
Yeah, but that one, it's also kind of like, let's calm down. You're 7-7 against statistically the easiest schedule in the league by far, with the most expensive
Go
roster.
ahead. I'm sure there's going to be a column about that.
I'm just saying they got to go win against the Rams. That is a big game. Both are 7-7. The Rams are technically the wild card right now, and the Saints are one spot behind them. They're trying to win the division too, but like that is a big game, and this was their best game of the season, no question. Defensively, they did not allow the Giants into the red zone. I mean, they destroyed them. They sacked Tommy DeVito 7 times before a couple garbage time possessions when it was 24-6. The Giants only had 101 yards. It was outrageous. The offense was really efficient, 24 points in only 8 drives. Carr was spotless. Kamara goes for over 100. He goes for 110 yards, and they won these 2 games 52-8. To your point, against the bad team, so they have set themselves up to save their season. I do think it is funny, like him peacocking and everything when they've been incredibly mediocre. But that's the thing. Like they were, like I heard Demario Davis in the locker room talking about all the outside noise. We got to shut it out, and he's like talking about his own fans. That's the outside noise. Which
there's
like
been
pretty
something
rare.
extraordinary about, and the coach doing that is in part a response to this team specifically for whatever it is. Sometimes there's just a team, and this is fine because I think we've all been in this situation. Saints fans are in it this year. There's just a team that gets on your nerves in a way, and if it's the coach and a quarterback tandem that are leading the way, that will make it even more pronounced. And that's the Saints fans are just fed up, and I think Allen's frustration, because he's been in the crosshairs and so has been the quarterback, that's him letting off a little steam more.
This game will get their hopes up, and this game will get them happy. I think this was.
I have no problem with Saints fans being nonplussed with Dennis Allen. I just don't.
That's
I'm not
obviously, Mark, not what I'm saying.
I know, but I'm not.
Obviously
I'm not even like. I also like. I don't want to keep
These are
having the
people.
Derek Carr conversation
These are
over
people.
and over.
He's frustrated.
But like the idea that like Derek Carr should be praised more than he's been praised is also ridiculous. He's not had a good season. The one guy who has been awesome, and you mentioned him, is Demario Davis, who has been on your team and mine in the past, and they let him
Great
go.
player.
He has week to week, I feel like, and year to year, this is the dude that shows up. He had 10 tackles today, a sack. He was all over the place. It's like you can count on him every single week.
He shows how much smarts can make a career, because he's not quite a Hall of Famer, but man, he's like a Hall of Very Good. Like he's getting closer. Like he's lost a step clearly this year, and he's not quite the same in pass defense, and yet he's still a total difference maker. Passanio had 3 sacks in this game. Brian Brissy, their rookie, had a couple sacks. They just strangled the Giants offense. Barkley, Tommy DeVito, everything. So it was really good. If they can be that type of defense, and they haven't given up a touchdown now in how long? I don't know. 9 quarters, I think, right? They didn't give up one last week. And if they could play defense like this, then you just need a mistake-free type of offense, and that's how they played today.
Yeah, just flush it. Try to have a nice end of the season. Passanio, by the way, I liked what he said. He did the Tommy Cutlet's pinch finger gesture after one of his sacks, and his quote, "I'm from Philly. We got a whole bunch of Italians out there, so we're used to Italian." It's a good line. Let's move to Charlotte.
The ball is between the hashes. It is a 23-yard chip shot for the win. Jansen to snap. Hecker puts it down. Eddie swings the leg. The kick is up. It's good. Cue up Neil Diamond.
We haven't heard it in a long time. I love it.
In a season where so much that could go wrong has gone wrong, and on a day where the elements conspired, Mother Nature gave us her own metaphor. Here is the rain. Here is the doom.
Marc Sessler?
Here is the gloom. Here is the wind. On the field, a little ray of sunshine.
Oh, put it in the file.
Wow.
Christ, put it in the file. That is a man that has been through it with the Panthers. A little ray of sunshine. Anish Shroff with the call. WRFX. Steady Eddie Pinheiro got it done, booting a 23-yard field goal as time expired. Panthers beat the Falcons. Come on, guys. 9-7 in that steady downpour. The Falcons' playoff hopes now on life support. with the loss. Mark, good for the Panthers and interim coach Chris Tabor and their play-by-play guy. Bad, very bad, the latest inevitable crushing turnover from Desmond Ridder. Take us back to that moment.
This is the kind of game that, like, if you had your doubts about Arthur Smith and you wonder about, like, the actual overall plan here, here's your evidence. Like, Desmond Ridder had, I think, maybe the worst interception of the day, a red zone disaster, which seems to happen to him on a weekly basis. This is a team that says our identity is to run the ball against a bad Panthers defense. You run the ball 31 times at one.
But that moment, take me to that moment. What's the score? What's the situation? They're in the red zone because I remember looking at the box score and saying to myself, oh, they kick a field goal, the game's over. And instead, they have Ridder rolling out on a pass.
I don't have an answer for why they're doing that.
That blows my mind.
This is meant to be an offensive-minded coach that would never put you in that situation. I mean, all your skill position players have been invisible the entire way. It's a low moment for this entire team. And like Bryce Young didn't look great either, but it's like they're the one team that found a way to have Bryce Young seal up a game-winning drive when he's not been able to do this the entire season. It's like this team
had a nice throw in there to Mingo.
Build that once a week. It's like this. The Falcons completely fell apart.
I mean, that is as crushed. This is a game that gets you fired potentially. It's a cry for help type of game. I trust Steve Weiss saying that he thinks when he was here that there was no way Arthur Smith was going to lose his job. Now they've lost a couple games since. One of them was to the Panthers. And to your point, you were saying what, 31 rushes for 52 yards. And so the way the game ends is that Ridder interception happens when they could go ahead. And there's still 7.5 minutes left. You figure, okay, we'll get the ball back. No, the Panthers end the game with a 17-play, 85-yard drive. So that is, I just think on the levels of losing, like that is the worst possible loss that is the way you don't make the playoffs.
Unless the quarterback audibled out on his own there. When you have a chance to go up, that would have put him up, what?
They were 2nd and 10 there. They're just inside the red zone. I'm not going to kill them for calling a pass play. Don't throw the interception. It was a terrible play.
No, but you can't.
But they could have gone 14-6.
You're just running the ball twice on 2nd and 10 with 8 minutes to go.
The score at that point is what? 7-6.
7-6. Yes. So you
play conservative.
10-6.
You bleed the clock. You kick a field goal that puts you ahead 4 points against a Panthers team that was not going to score a touchdown. This is basic stuff.
I just mean on the blame pie chart, that's still player 90% there.
But you have to understand your personnel and understand who Desmond Ridder has been all year to put the ball in his hands to win that game. That just to me that is you're a coach that doesn't understand, is just too stubborn for his own good, and that has been a case with Smith all year. Can't lose that game. You can't lose it.
And to Greg's point too, though, because the Falcons on defense have been there's things to like about their defense, like a 17-play drive that started on Carolina's own 5. You never get the ball back. They kick the winning field goal. A quarterback that's not shown zero signs of development all year long.
Rough.
Gonna be a lot of heat on him this week, and you know it happens in a week where the Bucs win a game that they weren't favored by. Falcons still, because of the schedule and because they still have division games and they have all the tiebreakers, like they're not out of it. But this was the lowest moment of the Arthur Smith era, no doubt. And they got the Colts, then at Bears, at New Orleans. I mean, they will be, you know, they could lose all 3. I know it's 2023, so they could win all 3, but this feels like.
And Steve Weiss is obviously really good at his job. He used to work with the Falcons. He's plugged in with that team. He's not working with them anymore, but knows a lot of people, so I'm sure he wasn't pulling that out of thin air. But that was also at the beginning of this month. If this season craters, and he's 3 years, Smith, on the job without a playoff appearance, and
you got Ridder wrong.
We're losing the script here with the Falcons. It's like, what are they about? And like, I think you have to feel that if you're the owner.
Bijan Robinson was a non-factor in this game.
7 for 11.
The big fumble.
The conditions. When I saw those conditions today, I actually thought, oh, well, that's perfect for the Falcons. You know, they're a rugged team that like they should be able to run the ball, and you end up with Bijan 7 for 11. Cordarrelle Patterson 5 for -2. Ridder 5 for -2. It's like what is happening?
All right, to Sunday Night Football.
Lamar in the shotgun on 2nd down and 6. Takes the snap. Sets his feet, steps up, hits, spins out of a sack, backpedals to the 45, going deep, look out, trouble, but it is caught
at the 5-yard line. Coming down with the ball is Isaiah Likely in between a pair of Jacksonville defenders who looked in position to pick the ball off.
So that was a no, don't throw that ball. Yes, great catch.
A signature play from Lamar Jackson, the call, Jerry Sandusky and Rod Woodson, Ravens radio. And listen, do the Ravens win games with the same panache as the Niners, for example? Or, you know, when the Cowboys are going right, or even the Bills at their top gear, maybe it's not as sexy. But they don't care. Nobody cares because the Ravens keep winning, and they've been doing it all year, and they continue to do it. And they did it on Sunday Night Football, a 23-7 win over the Jaguars, who just didn't. I mean, it's just like, come on, guys. We're supposed to be trying to.
They were frustrated.
Yep.
I mean, who wouldn't be frustrated? Imagine you're a Jaguars fan. Anyway, so the Ravens moved to 11-3 and one step closer to that number 1 seed in the AFC. And Mark, this was a game in which Lamar Jackson did a bunch of magical things, even if it wasn't his most gaudy statistical game. And the Jaguars repeatedly shot themselves in the foot and looked pretty small in a big spot.
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville is shrinking on both sides of the ball. And I know number one, you don't have Christian Kirk. That's hurt them a lot, more than I think people would expect. But I'm watching their defense also just cave in. And in the Ravens tonight, you're right, they aren't maybe the flashiest of outfits that come to memory or mind, but they ran for 251 yards at 6 yards per pop. I mean, you're getting a Lamar Jackson, a version of where he ran for almost 100 yards tonight. They imposed their will. They didn't make mistakes down the stretch, where the Jaguars are a team that they're getting close, and they're frustrating because they missed 2 field goals, which is kind of unheard of in today's NFL for the most part. You got 2 fumbles for Trevor Lawrence, one a strip sack, but one a pretty bad fumble in the first half.
Bad Lawrence.
Just dropped the ball.
Yeah, and a drive that basically ended inside the Ravens 5 right before the half. So it's lost opportunities, missed opportunities. They are 8. I mean, they've lost 3 in a row. It's been a terrible, terrible run through the AFC North.
Right. They kind of got to their part of the schedule, which for the most part was soft. They had that nice win against Buffalo in London that really kind of turned their season around. But mostly it's been soft. And then you get to the tougher part of the schedule, and they don't get any W's against the Bengals, Browns.
La Raville Magnifico.
Or Ravens.
Call it.
And it might not end up costing them. It might. They're 8-6. It's now a 3-way tie.
La Raville Magnifico.
Always welcome to Frags.
That's so good. We got her in twice. We got the
Greg has done this twice, where it takes a lot of courage. You get Frags, and everyone's transported, and then Greg speaks next. And I love Greg, but it's like we've got it's a jarring juxtaposition.
Hit Frags again, and then let's just let it breathe, just for like 5 seconds. I know it's late.
La Raville Magnifico.
Oh, you couldn't do it.
I just feel good.
Does make
you honkaholic. You couldn't do it.
I did.
We're supposed to have total silence.
Just felt
Chief Mighty Honk.
That's not honky. You can't. A hum isn't a honk. That just you felt so free and
we could have done 5 seconds.
All right, let's do it again. Let's do it again.
All right, one more time.
Let's do it again.
La Raville Magnifico.
You're the worst.
Yeah, it is unbelievable.
You are. What did you say to me last week, Mark? You have to be the most annoying man in the world. All right, go ahead.
That wasn't even like a conscious thing. It just,
I know.
Just came out. Just
That's
came
why
out.
I can't be mad.
Look, Trevor Lawrence needs to play better in these big spots, and it's weird to start with him because he also made a lot of good plays in this game. That's typical of Trevor Lawrence, but I think of the first drive where he just sails a 3rd and 6 that ends the drive. I think of those 2 fumbles, and then I especially think of the end of the first half where he makes a nice throw down the sidelines, but it's inbounds. You're in a hurry-up situation, and he makes a throw that you just can't make if you're a quarterback in that spot. I'm sure he thought he was leading his receiver to the sideline and he was going to get out of bounds, but you just have to know you can't make that throw. The half ends after missing so many points. You mentioned the field goals and the fumbles, like to not get any points in that situation. That's totally on the quarterback, and there's just different leaks springing up every week with Jacksonville, who I thought played pretty well defensively tonight, but in the second half just kind of got run over by Keaton Mitchell, who and Gus Edwards and Lamar, and unfortunately Keaton Mitchell left with what looks like a serious knee injury.
Yeah, the serious injury is so serious we won't even show it to you on replay, but in real time you saw it really bad, the angle and everything immediately carded, and very likely we don't see Mitchell again this season, and hopefully he'll get healthy because he was a really explosive, exciting player when he was on the field. So that's another running back in that cursed running back room of the Baltimore Ravens dealing with injury. On the positive side of it, that going back to the highlight that got us into it, this was a really fun Lamar game, a really fun Lamar season. He's been just a really, really good all-around quarterback, and even if the numbers aren't crazy this season, he has absolutely been a star, and I'll once again say it because we went through an entire summer talking about it, and now it feels like it's forgotten. The Ravens dared anyone else to take him from us, and I don't know if they would have ultimately matched any offer sheet, and it was all just a game of chicken, or if the Ravens were actually serious about losing Lamar, but we'll never know, and nobody ever actually. All these teams looking for a quarterback, none of them made a serious play to try to get Lamar Jackson. And this is the player that could have been had by many teams, or at least they could have been in service, had a chance to have his services. Said it's the Ravens, and I'll give a shout out to Isaiah Likely. He's the one who caught that wild pass from Lamar. He also had another touchdown when Mark Andrews went out with that injury a few weeks back. That seemed like really bad news for Baltimore, but Likely has done a really nice job filling that tight end spot and making it not be a major issue for them. So it's like these with the Ravens, Greg, it's these, you watch these games and it's their ability to always make the big play, the big conversion, the big third down, the big stop. That's a sign of a good team.
Right. They hit you at different levels defensively. Kyle Hamilton was back from the injury, looked good. Matabike had a huge sack. They're just a team without a lot of weaknesses. And so something steps up during the game at some point. And the something last couple of weeks has been Lamar's running, 12 for 97 on the night. I thought those scrambles, he had that one bad interception. This was a very typical 2023 Lamar Jackson play where he has like one really bad play, but outside of that, the touchdown drive was electric, and he goes 12 for 97 on the ground. Last week was the most he scrambled all season, and now he followed up with 12 for 97. I think it's kind of like, hey, it's go time. I'm going to start running more.
I do think that Keaton Mitchell, presuming he's gone for a while, I mean, that looked bad. We'll see. But like he was adding this whole other element because Likely also, I think, is something that they didn't expect to have in this format, and it's happened because of Mark Andrews. But Keaton Mitchell made them kind of special on offense in certain ways. He really was emerging, so they're going to have to work around that.
There's a reason they were favoring him over Gus Edwards, really. Like, look, you can just look at it tonight. Gus Edwards averages 3.6. Keaton Mitchell, 9 for 73. They just don't have that explosive element now without Edwards. You'll see a little more Justice Hill.
Yeah.
Without Mitchell.
My last take on this game is, hey, Terry McCauley. Take the L, my guy. That play, they're down 16, the Jaguars. They're going on a nothing burger drive to cosmetically make it a one-score game, but they're really struggling. It's almost like Baltimore is saying, all right, we'll let you have this garbage time touchdown. They still can't find a way to do it. There's a throw in the back of the end zone. It was at Ridley, I think. Bobbles it, collects it, rolling out of bounds. It's ruled incomplete. McCauley's really strong on the NBC telecast that it's a touchdown. The call stands as an incompletion, and McCauley is very upset. He's big mad, and that was kind of funny. We were remarking on that. We go from the theater here where we watch the games on Sunday night back to the studio, throw the game back on the tablet here, and they throw it back to McCauley. He said, I've now called the league office, and they said it didn't rise to the level of reversing the call. It's like, Terry, big terror. Just take the L. Move on.
Right, because call the league office if it's something that all of us sense as a pressing concern that truly impacted the end of the game. It's like none of us were like roiled up about it, and he's going nuts.
And how is that indisputable evidence anyways? It's like they're slowing it down frame by frame. Oh, if you see like it had just stopped rolling with the thigh, it's like, no,
not today,
you just had a bad first instinct and you stuck to it.
No. Anything else?
No.
Oh, there's something else.
Oh, yeah, another one.
Locked it up. You should have stayed in the nest with me.
I know. But, to Nick's point, there's not a lot of excitement with locking up the Ravens, but you've done it probably 8 times, and
That's
it
not
seems
true.
to be very effective.
Like 4 times, but yeah, a decent amount of
Like,
times.
oh, we're gonna watch the Ravens grind out another 23-8 win. Like, let's high five each other. Like, I get what Nick's saying. That's all I'm saying.
They were like 3.5-point favorites on the road against a first place team. Let's go. What are you gonna do? At 11-3, they now gave themselves a little bit of room here where they can lose next week.
If you don't stop talking,
San
Mark is
Francisco.
going to literally
I know,
rip
but
out your throat.
I mean, I think we get it. I think we get it.
Like, you have to understand, Greg, you are in mortal danger right now. It's
I'm not afraid.
Got to get out of the
I'm not
studio.
afraid.
It's been a long day. I mean, I find great enjoyment in these Sundays. As the day creeps towards 9 p.m. on the West Coast, it's like I at some point hit me with a brick.
All right. Well,
can you imagine living with me?
That brick is the closing music, hurtling towards your face like Marv from Home Alone.
I welcome it.
All right. Well, we got more coming up on Monday. Game of the week on NFL Plus and Monday Night Football news recap. Till then, heed the call.